The morning sun had barely breached the Manhattan skyline when the Rockefeller Plaza buzzed with an unusual electricity. It wasn't just the usual crowd gathering to wave signs behind the glass during a broadcast of the Today Show. It was more intense, more frenzied. A storm of whispers circled the plaza like the early fall wind. Meghan Markle was scheduled to appear live. Not via Zoom, not pre-taped, live in studio. It's the Duchess of Sussex, the former actress. The woman who had, depending on who you asked, either fled or defied the British monarchy. Every network wanted the exclusive, but it was Savannah Guthrie, an NBC who had landed the booking. Guthrie, sharp as ever, had promised her producer she wasn't pulling any punches. Asterisk, inside Studio 1A. The cameras clicked into standby mode. Technicians adjusted microphones. Makeup was dabbed. Wardrobe fixes were made. But Savannah sat still in her chair, fingers lightly tapping the cue cards. She wasn't nervous. She was focused. Meghan had come to promote a new podcast, Archetypes. Season 2 and talk about her ongoing philanthropic work, but Savannah suspected this would be no lighthearted segment. There were rumors, of course, about a new memoir, about tensions with the royal family, about leaked emails between Meghan and former Palisades. And there was that recent Vanity Fair piece suggesting Meghan was eyeing a return to Hollywood. The stage was set for something combustible. Asterisk, Meghan entered with her usual blend of composed elegance and tightly managed warmth. Her silk blouse shimmered under the studio lights, her hair sleek, her smile perfectly timed. The crew whispered how good she looked, how unbothered she seemed. But Savannah had interviewed presidents, whistleblowers, and war correspondents. She knew how to read beneath a polished surface. Meghan's eyes gave her a weightless, calculating, preparing not for a conversation, but a performance. Asterisk, as the segment began, the first few minutes were cordial enough. They talked about motherhood, mental health, and the pressures of living. Under public scrutiny, Meghan spoke with practiced poise, weaving in just enough vulnerability to keep the audience sympathetic. But Savannah's questions grew sharper, inch by inch. "You've said the institution didn't protect you," she asked, voice calm but unrelenting. "Do you believe you've done anything to protect the monarchy in return?" Meghan hesitated. For just a breath, barely long enough for the average viewer to notice, but Savannah did. She pressed again, this time referencing a specific email allegedly sent to Buckingham Palisades that contradicted Meghan's public narrative about not being briefed. Asterisk, Meghan blinked. The studio chilled. A flicker of tension danced across her face before she composed herself and deflected. "I think what's important is that people understand I've always spoken my truth," she said. But Savannah wasn't finished. "Do you ever worry that your truth may come at the cost of someone else's? That your truth and the truth might not be the same thing?" Meghan shifted in her seat, the practiced confidence cracking ever so slightly. Cameras zoomed in, viewers leaned forward across the country, social media lit up. Asterisk, and then came the moment. Savannah asked, "Do you think stepping away from the royal family has brought more peace to your life for just more publicity?" It was a clean shot, direct and damning. Meghan's smile froze. She responded with a measured laugh, brushing the question aside. "It's not about publicity. It's about freedom." But the damage was done. Savannah tilted her head, her eyes narrowing not in cruelty, but in that unmistakable way journalists do when they sense the guest is dodging. "So why the cameras? Why the Netflix deals, the memoirs, the podcasts?" The audience, both live and at home, could feel the tide shift. It was no longer an interview, it was a reckoning. Asterisk, for a brief moment, Meghan seemed stunned. Not because she hadn't anticipated hard questions, but because someone on American soil on a mainstream morning show, no less, was asking them without reverence. This wasn't a British tabloid hit job. This was Savannah Guthrie, professional and composed, but utterly fearless. Meghan fired back, her tone changing. "There's a double standard when it comes to women speaking up, and men do it there. Brave. When women do it, we're difficult." Savannah didn't blink. "But is it bravery or branding?" she asked, her voice like a scalpel. Asterisk, the studio fell into a silence that felt like falling glass. Meghan's expression tightened. For the first time since stepping into the public eye post-royalty, she looked off-script. I came here to have a thoughtful conversation, not to be interrogated, she said. But Savannah wasn't moved. Not interrogating you. I'm doing what you've asked the world to do. Hold power accountable, even when it wears a tiara. The moment Savannah's words echoed through the studio, hold power accountable. Even when it wears a tiara, a tangible shift occurred. Not just on set, but in the energy of the room. The control Meghan had masterfully wielded since the cameras began rolling slipped from her grasp like sand through polished fingers. For a woman who had reshaped the global narrative around herself, facing down 1,000 headlines, winning hearts and dividing critics, this moment felt different. Not because she was under attack, but because the person across from her wasn't playing into the familiar script of reverence or outrage. Savannah Guthrie was holding a mirror, and the reflection in it was unfiltered, unscripted, and disturbingly raw. Asterisk, the camera cut briefly to Hoda Kotb, sitting on the side of the stage, wide-eyed and silent. Producers in the control room exchanged glances that veered between exhilaration and dread. Phones vibrated violently in pockets. Social media was already on fire. Clips of the exchange had hit Twitter and TikTok within seconds. The words Savannah, Meghan, Today's Show, and tiara were trending before the commercial break even hit. On live TV, Meghan composed herself quickly, but the audience saw the Fisher's small, fleeting signs of a public figure used to control. Suddenly off balance? Asterisk, I didn't come here to be vilified, Meghan said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Her tone was still measured, but the warmth had cooled. I came to share my journey, not to defend it. Asterisk, Savannah leaned back, unfazed. And I respect that, she said calmly. But with that journey comes influence. And with influence comes questions. Your story matters, Meghan, but so does the truth. Asterisk, a long, tense silence followed. Meghan's posture stiffened. This wasn't the frothy morning fluff she might have expected. It wasn't a fawning podcast. It wasn't even Oprah. This was a seasoned journalist in front of a live audience, committed to doing her job and doing it well. Meghan glanced to the side, where her publicist stood frozen, a look of horror thinly veiled behind professional stillness. The plan had been to pivot quickly from tough questions to the promotion of her humanitarian initiative, but that pivot had evaporated. Asterisk, let's talk about the memoir, Savannah continued, her voice soft, even polite. You've said it will be an honest account of your journey. Are you prepared for the people you criticize in that memoir? To respond publicly, perhaps with a version of events that contradicts your own? Asterisk, I'm not here to tear anyone down, Meghan replied, her voice rising subtly. This book isn't about revenge. It's about healing. Asterisk, and yet, Savannah said, eyes narrowing just slightly. Your critics say healing doesn't usually come with publishing deals, streaming contracts, and explosive allegations. They say it looks more like monetized victimhood. Asterisk there. It was the bombshell asterisk for a moment. Even the crew held their breath. Meghan's face froze. The left corner of her mouth twitched ever so slightly. Her hands, which had been delicately folded, now clutched each other tightly in her lap. The Duchess wasn't just offended, she was livid, and the camera caught it all. Asterisk, you know, Savannah. Meghan began slowly. I think it's very easy. For people who haven't walked a day in my shoes to judge what survival looks like? Asterisk, I'm not judging, Savannah replied without flinching. I'm asking. Because survival looks different when there's a $100 million production deal attached to it. Asterisk, the control room erupted into motion. Cut to B-roll, one of the producers shouted, but the director waved it off. This was gold, unscripted, explosive, and somehow still civil. Every network executive watching from home likely choked on their morning coffee. The segment had gone from anticipated to legendary in under 10 minutes. Asterisk, I think we're done here, Meghan said abruptly, standing. Asterisk, Savannah didn't move. That's your choice. Asterisk, the audience murmured. Hoda stood quickly, trying to diffuse the tension. Meghan's publicist rushed forward, whispering rapidly into her client's ear. Meghan, still mic'd, could be heard saying, "This is a setup." A producer offstage attempted to soothe her, suggesting a break, but Meghan was already moving. She walked off set, not in a rage, but in a silent storm, a composed, furious tempest leaving a vacuum behind. Savannah remained seated. She looked into the camera with the ease of a veteran, shoulders squared, jaw tight. "We'll be right back after the break," she said smoothly. But the internet wouldn't take a break. Clips of the showdown dominated every social feed. Every headline, every group chat. People took sides immediately. Some called Savannah cruel, disrespectful, even racist. Others praised her for doing what so many in media had failed to do: interview Meghan Markle without fear. Within an hour, hashtags were trending on both sides. Hashtag Savannah the Queen and hashtag Today's Show Shame.